sound and resonance. It levitates, it boils water, creates light, spontaneous generation of DNA, it heals, it destroys pathogens, it melts metals at body temperature at around 104 degrees, the hardest metals that you can find. It's a precursor to electromagnetism, electromagnetic fields. In 2011, Luc Montagnier discovered that you can spontaneously generate DNA just by exposing it to 7 hertz. Peter Davy, this is one of my favorite examples of what sound can do, and Peter Davy inadvertently gave us free energy. I'm saying free, it's sort of getting there, right? Because from 1940, this guy's been boiling water with sound. Nikola Tesla, I believe, actually used did a lot more with sound than most of us would realize, and one of his most ignored statements is that the earth rings like a bell, and if you tap into the sound frequency of the earth, you've got an inexhaustible source of energy. And I really believe that that's probably what he was using more than anything else, using sound of Gaia to generate the unlimited free energy that he seemed to have shared with us. And what does this have to do with ancient civilizations and our evolution of consciousness? Everything, because it's now very clear that the ancient cultures used sound and resonance and frequency to do everything they did. The spectacular structures that they built around the world, and all the mystery they left for us to unravel, we're starting to unravel it because we're starting to understand that it was sound that they used. And this is interesting because there's some photographs that clearly show that there's still some interesting waves and frequencies coming out of the pyramid that we don't understand and can't explain. So there's a lot of support for this, even in the symmetrical patterns that come out of Stonehenge clearly indicate that this was not an accident, that it was built with certain consciousness in mind and specific outcome in mind because of the coherent interference patterns that we find coming out of there. Ed Leeds Collin in southern Florida built Coral Castle, I believe used sound to levitate these things. And the reason I say this is because he did this incredible thing on his own, moving these giant blocks, carving them, moving them around, and building this whole place called Coral Castle on his own. And apparently he did this with what some schoolboys could refer to as ice cream cones in his hands. And this is why I call it the ice cream cone phenomenon. And I got very excited about this, and these are the little moments in your research, in your life of research, that change the way you think about things and how you see things, because I've been finding ice cream or cone-shaped tools around South Africa, around the stone circles, since the first day I set my foot there, and I found dozens and dozens of them, all connected to the stone circles and the ancient ruins that I've been exploring. And suddenly you start finding these cone-shaped tools in Egypt. You start finding them everywhere. You find them in the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose in California. And guess what the cuneiform inscriptions on these cone-shaped tools tell us? That these were tools utilized for building the temples in Sumer. And they commemorate the building of the temples in Sumer. Cone-shaped tools, and we start getting an interesting common denominator here. The conical tower in Great Zimbabwe, and I believe there were actually 2 conical towers in Great Zimbabwe facing the sky. Were these possibly the tips of Caesar technology? I believe that you understand why I make these outrageous claims. I was just recently told by people that have been working on the Bosnian pyramid that they've been finding dozens and dozens of cone-shaped stones in the Bosnian pyramid among the artifacts they've been collecting at Sam Osmanagic. I need to ask him to send me some photographs. And then in our eyes, we've got rods and cones, right? So when we see movies like Superman, I believe that this is really our gift, to be like Superman, to do things with our eyes because of the cones in our eyes. And you'll start seeing why this is not as outlandish and outrageous as first might meet the eye. The history books claim that Southern Africa was sparsely populated. Well, unfortunately, that theory gets blown right out the water by the stone ruins and the ancient sites that we've been discovering and sharing with the world. There are many, many of them. I'm going to show you just a few of them so you get an idea. If you've seen this before, please indulge me again. What's important to note that each one of them is circular, and yet each one is completely unique. There are no 2 stone circles that are identical or even closely resembling each other. They are completely unique. And you start seeing very interesting things as you start studying this. But because we only have an hour, I'm just going to rush through this. And you start seeing some fascinating flower-shaped patterns, because flowers are pretty. So they built cattle kraal to look like flowers, right? But you can only see it when you're up in the air. I don't think so. So what's going on here? Notice how they connected by these channels, that everything is connected. And incidentally, Great Zimbabwe is part of all of this.